All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Powers. I've got a couple interesting stories for you guys today, so let's get straight into it. The first story for today is going to be Mike O'Hearn finally confronting Brad Castleberry in person. Now, this has been something that's been kind of like 2 years in the making. I mean, the Brad Castleberry videos have been around. The big controversy about the fake weights has been around since like 2017. The fall of 2017, I believe, was the first time that Mike O'Hearn actually called out Brad Castleberry and wanted to do a video where Brad and Mike's friend, who's like a former NFL player named Heath Evans, we're going to do like an NFL combine type of thing where Brad can kind of prove how strong he is with bench press for reps and, you know, all this other stuff that Brad does where he jumps, does these box jumps and all that shit. So back in 2017, Mike had called Brad out, and Brad was like, yeah, okay, you know, we can do that. Nothing ever came of it. A lot of people called Brad out, and nothing ever came of it. I think even Brian Shaw at one point called him out and said, hey, let's do a training video together. Brad never did that, even though he said he would. Mark Lobliner started the Real Weights for Real Heroes, inviting Brad to come there and kind of lift and show everybody that how strong he really is. Brad didn't do that. So I, for one, really got the impression from watching this video that this was not a planned encounter between Mike O'Hearn and Brad Castleberry. It's not like they planned to meet up or planned on working out together. Brad looked very uncomfortable, pretty much for the entirety of this video. And it looked like he was kind of cornered by Mike O'Hearn into making this Instagram video. And Brad's just kind of like, yeah, okay, we'll do whatever you want to basically everything that Mike was saying. It seemed like Brad wasn't even really listening to what he was saying and just kind of, nodded his head and said, okay. He was probably trying to just get Mike away from him. So Mike says next time you're in Vegas, we'll do, this NFL combine thing with Heath Evans and some other friend of Mike's. And Mike is kind of very condescending towards Brad in this video and says this other guy, he's your biggest fan, clearly being sarcastic. So a lot of people are sending me this Mike O'Hearn video and saying, we're finally going to see Brad, whether or not he proves that the weights are real or fake. It's like, dude, this has been a thing since 2017. Mike O'Hearn called him out back in 2017. The Brad Castleberry fake weights wave, I think, is kind of ridden its course. I don't think Brad is ever going to show up to any call out. So I'm going to go ahead and roll that clip for you guys with the audio on so you guys can kind of see how awkward the interaction really is. But to all the people asking me what my opinion was and if I think we're ever going to see Brad Castleberry show up to a call out, I don't think it's ever going to happen. And personally, I don't really care if it happens at this point. I mean, again, I think this whole fake weights thing is kind of, taken its course, and I don't think anyone really even cares, whether or not the weights were real. I think people, pretty much have drawn their own conclusions about that, and I think the whole thing's pretty much over. But here's the clip for you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.
All right, Siegel. So I just want you to know firsthand, Brad is going to take on Heath Evans. You don't mind that, right? What? Heath Evans here? What? That's it. We'll talk about it later. Yeah. You'll kick his ass. Don't worry about it. Heath don't even know what's coming.
Oh, no. Yeah.
But when you're in Vegas next, you come train with me and Steve Siegel.
Yo, I'm down.
He's like your biggest fan. He's
he's
like the governor of Vegas. So anything you want, to look it up.
Oh, let's do it.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Sound good, Steve? Oh.
It's on.
Ready.
All right, so next up in the news, we have this little screenshot here of a conversation between Phil Heath and Kai Green on Instagram. A lot of people are sending me this because really a lot of people are entertained when they see this friendly banter between two guys that were really bitter rivals just a few years back. And a lot of people sending it to me were speculating, maybe we're going to see Phil and Kai compete at the Olympia stage based on what Kai Green was saying here. So this comment was left on a post by William Bonac, and Kai Green said, by the way, I'm stealing everything that you just posted. I'm going to take your forearms and delts, and then I will find Phil Heath. And then he puts the little cursing emojis. And Phil Heath replies that comment and said, you sure it will be. And actually, my buddy down there that you can see in the comments, the kid Plot, actually sent this to me. And he says, I'm going to need you to stop teasing us, big bro. We all want to see the return of Kai versus Phil. But my boy William Bonac ain't playing no more either. Phil Heath, you and Kai got us bodybuilding fans itching like some crack fiends for this battle. And personally, I do think it's really cool to see Phil and Kai being kind of friendly to each other and having this friendly banter in the comment sections on social media. I just think it's cool to see that considering where their rivalry was, back in like 2014 when they almost got into a fight on stage. I just think it's cool to see. But do I think this is an indicator that we're going to see Phil versus Kai at the 2019 Mr. Olympia? Absolutely not. Personally, I think the whole Kai Green coming back and doing the Olympia, I don't think that's ever going to happen at this point. I think based on what we've seen over the past few years, the teasing, the speculation, the I might come back and then not coming back, I think Kai's done competing, at least at the Olympia. Could we see him at the Arnold Classic or some other show like that? Maybe. Do I think we're ever going to see Phil versus Kai on the Olympia stage ever again? I don't think so. Now, I would be absolutely thrilled if I were wrong and we saw Phil and Kai at the 2019 Mr. Olympia, because that would make things much more interesting. But to give you guys a realistic opinion, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think these comments are indicators that it's going to happen, and I don't think we're going to see it. But also in Phil Heath news, I wanted to show you guys this interview here that Phil Heath did on a YouTube channel called Valuetainment. And really, Phil Heath gets a bad rap, and he gets a lot of bad publicity. But I saw this interview, and I thought it was a really good and really insightful interview, so I'm going to link it down below. And in this interview, Phil talks about a lot of things that we've never heard Phil talk about before, because as you know, Phil doesn't do a whole lot of interviews. And this interview is it's very revealing. It talks a lot about his personal life. It talks about like his attitude towards the Olympia. It talks about some of his earlier Olympia appearances. He talks about his relationship with Jay Cutler. He just talks about his mindset and his mental state, going into some of these Olympias. And I think it's a really interesting interview, and definitely something it's worth a watch for sure. If you guys, even if you don't like Phil, I think it's just a really good interview and a really good perspective from a 7-time Mr. Olympia. And also the editing on this video was fantastic. It was a really, really good interview. So I highly recommend you guys watch this interview if you have not watched it already. Again, it will be linked in the description box below. Now, moving into the next story, also kind of in the same realm of the Olympia, we got Brandon Curry posting a posing update video on his Instagram here. Obviously, Brandon Curry just won the 2019 Arnold Classic in Columbus, Ohio, so we know he's got a lot of momentum coming off that show into the 2019 Olympia. And a lot of people are actually talking about him as being a favorite to win the 2019 Olympia, or to be a contender to Sean Roden or even Rolly Winkler, who took third last year. A lot of people have very high hopes for Brandon Curry at this year's Olympia, especially considering the fact there will be possibly no big Ramy, possibly no Phil Heath, which really gives a lot of potential for the Arnold Classic champion to place very, very highly at the 2019 Mr. Olympia and, possibly be a contender for the title. And I do think that's something that's possible. And one of the things that I've noticed about Brandon Curry over the past year or so of his, really the progress that he's made, is he's really tremendously improved his lower body, which in the past has been something that had been holding him back. But his lower body seems to have improved a lot. His upper body has always been fantastic. He's always had a great V-taper. He's always had a small waist. And that's probably my favorite thing about his physique, is the fact that he can put on this size and make these improvements as physique, but still keep that small waist. And with that added size to his legs, I do think that Brandon Curry is going to be a serious contender at the 2019 Mr. Olympia, and really possibly a guy that's going to be a top 2 or 3 guy at the Olympia. So I think people should really have their eyes on Brandon Curry, especially if we don't see Phil Heath in 2019. Brandon Curry is going to be one of the names that's going to be up there, possibly in the top 3. All right, so the final Olympia story before we get to the final story about Big Ramy and Neil Hill, I want to give you guys an updated list of qualified competitors for the 2019 Mr. Olympia after this past weekend's Toronto Pro. Now, there's been several pro shows over the past month, and the qualifications have really changed as far as who's qualified. So I want to give you guys the point standings and the qualified competitors list so you guys have an idea of who you're going to see at the 2019 Mr. Olympia. Now, again, this is just the qualified competitors list, so this does not necessarily mean you're going to see everybody on this list competing at the Olympia, because you're going to see Phil Heath's name on this list, and we don't know for sure we're going to see him. But this is who is qualified so far. You've got Sean Roden, obviously, who won the Olympia last year. Phil Heath, 7-time Mr. Olympia. He's qualified for life. Rolly Winkler, William Bonac, Brandon Curry, Dexter Jackson, who won the Olympia in 2008. So, again, he's qualified for life. If you win the Mr. Olympia, you're always qualified to compete at the Olympia. So, yes, Dexter Jackson is doing the Tampa Pro. He's not doing it to qualify for the Olympia. He's doing it because he wants to add that title to his resume. He doesn't need to do the Tampa Pro. He's doing it kind of as a warm-up and to get that title. But Dexter Jackson is already qualified to compete at the Olympia in 2019, so I just wanted to clarify that. Clarence DeVise, Max Charles, Steve Kuklo, Juan Morel, Josh Lenardowitz, Patrick Moore, who just won that Cali Pro last week, John De La Rosa, who just won both the Puerto Rico Pro and most recently the Toronto Pro. And I think John De La Rosa is really going to be a top threat to the Olympia this year. So as far as names that you don't see on that list, Big Ramy, Kai Green, two guys you're probably not going to see at the 2019 Mr. Olympia. Then the point standings. So the top guys in the point standings are going to be the guys that compete at the Olympia, and this can still change between now and the Olympia. But the top three guys right now are Akeem Williams, Cedric McMillan, and Luke Sando. But again, these point standings can still change because there's still several shows between now and the Olympia where points can be earned. So these aren't necessarily the guys that you're going to see on the Olympia stage, but those are the top three in the point standings right now. All right, let's get to the final story here, probably the reason why a lot of you guys clicked on this video. So Big Ramy and Neil Hill. There's been a lot of speculation over the past month that Big Ramy is no longer working with Neil Hill, and a lot of that speculation is fueled by the fact that Big Ramy has bounced around with really more coaches than almost anybody else in bodybuilding. Big Ramy's been kind of known to go from coach to coach, gather information from these coaches and really figure out, what's going to work best for his physique. And it really feels like he's almost worked with a different coach for every Olympia prep. But so Big Ramy and Neil Hill, this was the most recent coach that he had, and also fueled by the fact that Big Ramy has, kind of posted speculation that he's not going to be doing the Tampa Pro, not going to be doing the 2019 Olympia. And this interview here, posted on the Samo Gym Inc. YouTube channel, an exclusive interview with Neil Hill, really cleared up a lot of that. And to me, it really confirmed and solidified the fact that Big Ramy is not going to be competing at all in 2019, despite what Big Ramy posted about maybe the shoulder not being a big deal, still wanting to compete, still wanting to qualify for the Olympia. Neil Hill kind of addresses all of that in this video. So in this interview, it's a 13-minute interview, but I'm going to sum it up for you guys. Neil Hill basically says, over the past year, Big Ramy's been dealing with injury. He's been dealing with family things. He's been dealing with a lot of issues that made Neil Hill feel that Big Ramy should not compete in 2019 and should take some time off to focus on his personal life. So essentially, he says he told Big Ramy he shouldn't compete in 2019. Big Ramy expressed some interest in still competing in 2019 because so many people were telling him he needed to. And Neil Hill basically told Big Ramy, screw what those people are saying. You need to take time off, and basically left it at, if you ever need me, to help you prep or to help you with the off season, I'm here. So the interview basically did sound like right now, Big Ramy and Neil Hill are not working together, but all the rumors and all the speculation you saw over the past month or so about them not working together was not really the case. And that's why I never really reported on that story. Well, I never did report on that story because I didn't see any actual facts as to Big Ramy leaving Neil Hill to suggest that he actually left Neil Hill. So basically there's all this speculation. Big Ramy and Neil Hill had a conversation after that speculation where I guess Neil Hill was kind of upset about the fact that he saw this speculation and he kind of thought that was how he learned that Big Ramy was not working with him. So I guess he had a conversation with Big Ramy. Big Ramy said, look, no, that's not the case. I still want to work with you. And if I wasn't going to work with you, I would have reached out to you first before posting it on social media. So essentially he says in this interview, all that speculation was not true. And Big Ramy had not decided not to work with Neil Hill anymore. But based on how they left this interview, it sounds like as of right now, they're not working together for a 2019 Olympia prep or any other type of prep. So as of right now, it seems that Big Ramy will not be competing in 2019 and will not be working with Neil Hill for any shows in 2019. So that's basically where this interview left off. So that is the video for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you have not subscribed already, it really helps out a lot. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.